evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is TJ Friend. I'm the former mayor of Flora. And with me is Mr. Paul Harris from Chicago. Paul is the founder of Rotary. You know, in 1922, Flora was a bustling train town. They boasted not of one track, but 7 tracks here in town. Sadly, the orchards took a hit, and whenever that happened, well, the orchards just didn't produce the kind of business that we had hoped. However, some people referred to Flora by the nickname, and it was Orchard City. We even had an Orchard City College right here in town. Well, I will tell you that we had so much pride over what was going on in Flora. We wanted to be better. And we felt like we could do that if we could get our own Rotary Club.
Some of you may recognize me, or you may recognize my voice. My name is Brenda Miller, and I'm with WNOY. And I'm coming to you this evening from our beautiful depot on this gorgeous, warm fall evening of 1989 in downtown Flora.
89?
Did she just say that?
It's 1922.
Absolutely, 1922. Who is she?
What is she talking about?
I don't know. Who is she?
Excuse me, gentlemen. I'd like to tell these people about Flora Rotary Club.
Rotary Club.
Yes,
Okay, may I make an introduction?
of course.
I would like for you to meet Mr. Paul Harris, the founder
The
of Rotary.
founder of Rotary.
Nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
Very
Actually,
nice to meet you.
TJ and I are here to discuss Rotary Club.
Well, then why don't I do what I do best, and I will interview you, and then we can tell everyone about Rotary.
That'll work.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm Paul Harris. I'm from Chicago, Illinois, and I came down on the train this evening in 1922 to meet with TJ and discuss Flora having its very own Rotary Club right here. So I came down. Now, TJ did not mention that the depot would be so busy this evening with all these people around.
Well, you know, I appreciate you coming down, Paul. You know, it was whenever the vice president of Rotary International actually came to Flora and was at our Fruit Growers Association meeting, and he was telling us, and he had others with him, they were telling us about Rotary. Rotary was popping up everywhere. And, hey, we decided it was high time Flora had their very own Rotary Club.
What year was that?
1922.
That's right. That's what I thought. 1922.
Excuse me? Gentlemen, we have a Rotary Club. We've had a Rotary Club. I joined just this year, 1989.
That's what I thought. Are you saying you've covered the club for your job as a reporter, been in the meetings for that reason, or?
No, I didn't cover it. I am a Rotarian. My good friend and co-worker, Randy Poole, actually proposed me for Rotary. I was the first of 2 women to be in our club and the first female president of Flora Rotary Club. Let me tell you a funny story about one of our esteemed members, Floyd Henson. Floyd, school superintendent, has a school here named after him. Also had an opinion about women in Rotary, and he would voice his opinion. And Floyd said, and it's a quote, "It will be the damnation of Rotary when they let women in." Well, Floyd led the singing and he led the prayer every week, and we become very good friends. Floyd later apologized for that comment. In fact, Floyd actually proposed a female himself, Beth Salzberger, for Rotary. Sadly, Floyd passed away before Beth was in Rotary, and I become her sponsor, and we become lifelong friends through Rotary.
Okay, so there's women in Rotary.
There are definitely women in Rotary.
I don't know that we're in the 1920s anymore.
I think you're right, TJ. I think times have certainly changed. Times have definitely changed since Rotary was just a vision of mine and my friends in Chicago in the year 1905, which I thought was just 17 years ago, but I'm hearing now it might have been a bit longer ago than that. Times have changed.
Yeah, times have changed. And speaking of change, I really miss all the traffic of the trains coming through here. I miss the noises, the sounds that they make. And the orchards. My goodness, the orchards are just dwindled down to where, you know, we don't have near those.
Excuse me, man. Back to Rotary. That's what we're talking about here.
Sorry, Brenda. All right.
Rotary.
Okay, you're right.
Yes. Rotary loves service projects. They love doing community service projects. What was your first one?
Just a second, let me interrupt here. This question has an answer. There may be a test following all of the exhibits, so please listen carefully.
Well, Brenda, I'm so glad you asked. You know, Rotary, being a service-based organization, you know, is there to meet a need in the community. So, you know, in 1905, our need was an outhouse. So we built one.
An outhouse.
An outhouse.
You don't say.
And it might sound funny, but I can assure you that at the time, the need for the outhouse was quite urgent in the community, so we built one.
Quite urgent.
Okay, you seem to be smirking at the very first project ever by Rotary.
Not a smirk. An appreciation.
Well, I'm going to ask that you do me a favor, okay?
Sure.
1989, right?
1989.
Okay, if you would, I'd like for you to give us your thinking on the futuristic projects that the Flora Rotary might have post 1989.
Sure, I can do that. All I need to do is pull out my crystal ball and look into the future, and I can tell you, we will have a gazebo with seating at Library Park, a skate park, a pavilion at Flora High School down at the football field, a doggy park all the way out in Charlie Brown Park, a disc golf course in Charlie Brown Park, and a totally redone outdoor basketball court that Rotary owns. And then, of course, there's this.
This?
What is this?
What is this?
This is Shadows of Elmwood. This is Flora Rotary Club's longest running project. 8 years. This is the 8th year for it. And guess who chairs it? A woman.
So, Paul, I'm thinking there are women in Rotary.
I think you're right, TJ. And it sounds like from Brenda here that the women in Rotary have done a great job in their community and in their club here in Florida.
I agree. Well done.
Yeah. So you folks enjoy your evening and your tour, but don't forget our 4-way test here at Rotary Club. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Good night. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you guys coming.
My name is Elsa. This is my sister Ruth, and we are known pretty much in every town and every era, sometimes referred to as busybodies or gossip queens. But that's okay. Just to live up to that reputation, we're going to go ahead and talk to you guys while you're waiting on your ride. We'll just chat about some news, information, and gossip, and how it's been spread over the last 100 years. You start.
First of all, I would just like to make known that I don't find the sharing of information and facts as gossip. I just think that everybody who comes within 4 feet of me, talks to me at the grocery store, sees me at the Home Depot, needs to know about what's going on. I only think it's fair that everybody is aware of what our community has got going. Where should I start? There has been several ways that news and gossip has been shared over the last 100 years.
Wait a minute. I believe we can all agree, whether it's news, information, or yes, gossip, that they all come with their own host of truths, untruths, and general speculation. To be honest with you, I believe the only difference between now and 100 years ago is how fast word gets spread now. And it's not because you guys talk more than we do. It's online avenues. Everybody has so much access to online.
For sure. You see, several hundred years ago, it could take days, weeks, or months for you to get news about a death in your very own family. Same was true about a birth. But nowadays, it's posted online before a family's even notified that anything's even happened. Happened to us back in 1938. Our brother was killed on his farm in Iowa. We didn't receive word about it for 4 full days.
No. But that wouldn't happen now. Anything you can possibly imagine is on Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter, or texted within seconds. pictures, funnies, comics, whatever one feels the need to share.
Not even can you get news and funnies. You can also see what your neighbor had for dinner because they're going to post a picture of it.
And you know what else? You can find out anything you want to know about a person on the internet. Half the time it's their own fault if you check their profile pages. My goodness, political spats and the oversharing of family drama. We know news has always been spread, but the unfactual news has also always been spread. It's not near as new as you think.
Right, but back in 1922, one of the best ways to, spread the news and let everybody know what was going on was a good old newspaper. But when you picked up a newspaper back then, there wasn't many pictures, it just had the headlines.
No, it was locals who had enlisted and who got a new car, who got married, who had babies, who got in trouble with the law. Clubs, organizations, and their meetings, and who attended. Anything you'd want to know about school, especially sports. So really, news has always been shared. It just hasn't always got around so fast.
Right, and over the past several decades, there's always also been television and radio that kind of pitched in. However, they didn't focus on the good, juicy stuff. It was more on actual news.
We've not even mentioned our very favorite and most instrumental means for spreading news, information, and gossip. 1876, Alexander Graham Bell gave us the telephone, and it was around years and years before it was put into homes and businesses. We have went through switchboard to rotary dials to push button to cordless, and now pretty much everybody you know has a cell phone. Most kids don't even know you can make a call without a device that doesn't fit in your pocket.
Right, and with the delay to private lines to homes, we actually used to have what was called a party line. And what that meant was that if your neighbor was on the phone and you needed to make a call, you couldn't until they were done. Also, it was the same vice versa. If you were on the phone, they couldn't. However, on a day that you needed to make a call, if you picked up your receiver, you could listen to their entire conversation. I don't know why they ever got rid of those, to be honest.
No. We need to talk to Wabash. I know. The spreading of news, information, and gossip is not new at all. It's just the means and the quickness that's changed over the last 100 years. We thought we'd give you a little sample of what one of our phone calls sounded like back in 1922. Hey, Ruthie.
Hi, Elsa.
What's the story?
Morning glory. What's the tale? Nightingale.
Ooh, have I got some stories for you?
Wait, did you hear about Kay? Her and Bill in the hay. When her daddy got wind, it was put to an end.
Oh, that doesn't beat. The story of Pete got caught with a gal, the wife of a pal.
Whew, did you see Bob's new car? He can drive it real far. The color's real bland, and it cost $100,000.
How about Sally and Dwayne? They were married last May. 9-pound bundle of joy. Early arrival, a boy.
I could visit all day, but I really can't stay. I just got news to share with the ladies downstairs.
For now it's goodbye.
Until morning is nigh,
when we can begin
sharing stories again.
Good evening. My name is Eddie Adidale. The year is 1922. And I returned to Flora as a night watchman after serving in the U.S. Army in the First World War and being injured. They wrote about me in the newspaper and everything.
I'm Roland Adidale. I'm Eddie's father. I was the mayor of this town at one time, and then I became a very prominent businessman in this town. And they wrote about me a lot in the paper.
I'm Frank Adidale. I'm Roland's brother. I was a telegraph operator for the railroad, and they wrote about me in the paper too.
Well, that's about it about us.
Have a good
Thanks for
night.
coming. Have a great night.
Wait a minute. Wait. Oh, not you again.
That's not the whole story.
Yeah, you tell him.
Yeah.
He killed me.
He killed me.
And he tried to kill me.
Back in 1909, I was a city marshal, and I was trying to keep this prominent businessman from running moonshine. And one night, he fired a shot to get my attention. I went over to investigate and he shot me in the face. Right here in the streets of Flora. Shot me dead.
Yeah, it's because you was a nuisance. You know what? And I went home and I crawled in my bed and I slept real good that night. That wasn't until they knocked on my door and woke me up and arrested me.
Yeah, and sentenced you to 30 years in prison.
Like father, like son.
I did not try to kill you.
You did try to kill me in the street. What do you Adadel men, like, why don't you ever do anything in the privacy of your own home?
Why not?
I did not try to kill you. I only stabbed you 5 times. Let me explain. This is Bernice Adadel. She's my wife. And we had what you might call a little fight.
I left him. What did the newspaper call us? Oh yeah. He moved to California, and when he came back to Flora, he stabbed me and got 8 years of prison.
8 years for a little fight. And she divorced me too.
I actually married someone a lot better who did not stab me. My name is actually Bernice McKnight. And don't let him fool you with the whole war hero thing. He actually was arrested for desertion after he joined.
Why do you always have to bring that up?
I didn't get killed in the streets. I got killed at my home, in my yard.
Now that was my house, and you, Henry Moore, were only renting it from me.
I paid rent, it's still my home.
Folks, I was in the yard doing some work, putting down cement pavers, when he went into the house and got a gun.
He was in my yard.
Of the house that I owned. He shot at me twice, one of the bullets going between my arm and my body, and I fell down, acting like I'd been hit, and grabbed my hatchet.
And he took it to my skull. I didn't even have a chance.
Well, wait a minute. How did you not have a chance? I mean, you had a gun. You shot at him twice. What do you mean you didn't have a chance?
Yeah, and he only has one arm.
So you had a gun and you shot at a man right in front of you and you missed and then you were killed by a one-armed man with a hatchet?
That's funny right there.
It's not funny.
Yeah, it
It
is.
happened really quick. And I died because of him.
How have I not heard about this?
Well, it's because you's already dead, you idiot. I shot you in 1909. That didn't happen until 1911 in the town of Girard.
Oh yeah, Eddie was bragging about this right before he tried to kill me in 1936. How did he lose his arm?
I don't like to talk about it.
Woman, would you stop saying that I tried to kill you? It was only 5 little stabs. For the last time, I did not try to kill you.
You did too.
Well, folks, we better say goodnight before somebody else gets killed. Again. But, just remember, if you ever hear the last name Adadel, be forewarned. Have a good night. You shot me in the butt.
That's 'cause you're still on the other side of your face if you don't get out of here. Y'all better get on out, because it might get ugly around here.
You're fine.
Y'all have a good night. Thanks for coming.
Hello, I am Orville Stanley Jr. And to many I was referred to as Stan or Orville, but to my family I was just Junior. I was born in Sailor Springs in 1943, right in the middle of a total of 9 brothers and sisters. We moved to Flora in 1950, and life seemed pretty normal. Dad was working for the B&O Railroad after returning from World War II. And Mom had just given birth to my sister, who was only 1 month old. Now, one morning in August of 1952, after waking up and trying to get out of bed, I remember telling my brother I could hardly stand up. The diagnosis was given, and it's what all parents during that era feared to hear. Mr. and Mrs. Stanley, we believe that your son has contracted polio, and it's causing paralysis. I was just weeks away from my 9th birthday. I gradually became paralyzed from the neck down, but that eventually improved with time and treatment. I regained the use of my arms. However, I spent the remainder of my life using a wheelchair for mobility. Now, most of you have probably heard of polio, or officially poliomyelitis. It's an aggressive virus that attacks the motor neurons of the central nervous system. Those are the cells that send commands from your brain all through your spinal cord and body, and they control your functions and your movement. And in my case, the polio virus had started to destroy the cells in my spinal cord. Now, how far back do you think that polio might have existed? Well, there are Egyptian carvings depicting young people with withered legs and using canes. And infections with polio seem to have gotten worse in the U.S. after the year 1900 because as sanitation improved, children seem to have less natural immunity. It's believed by many historians that Franklin D. Roosevelt experienced polio prior to running for U.S. president, and he was fitted for leg braces back in 1922. Now, in 1952, the year that polio changed my life forever, the U.S. recorded its highest number of infections and deaths. Over 3,000 died, and over 20,000 were permanently paralyzed in some way. And there were dozens of cases right here in Clay County during the 1940s and 50s. But my family didn't give up on me. My parents approved surgeries on my spine and even on the tendons in my hands to help improve their function. And with a hospital bed in our living room and surrounded by my siblings, I was always right in the middle of everything, and I didn't like to stay still. I learned to move around with my wheelchair, and my siblings could push me around as my arms grew stronger. Even combined to my bed, we played a game where I was Sitting Bull and they were the cowboys, and I'd reach out and grab for them as they ran by my bed. And things just like that helped me to grow stronger and rehabilitate. A physical therapist and teacher came to our house regularly. Now, for a time, I was in a body cast for months as part of the treatment, and often face down, and a book was placed below me so that I could read. I loved words and learning, and I'd have a dictionary many times, and I'd just read that dictionary. It's especially come in handy with a game that I've also loved throughout life, which is Scrabble. And anytime someone challenged me, I'd say, oh yes, excuse me, cassowary, C-A-S-S-O-W-A-R-Y. Of course, that's a large flightless bird. You didn't know that. It's right here in Webster's Dictionary, right here on page 362. It was decided that I would move to Chicago, Illinois, to a place called the Illinois Children's Hospital School. They helped me with all my physical needs, my education, and they always challenged me. I lived there almost full-time until I graduated with a high school diploma. And from there, I went on to SIU at Carbondale, and then Quincy Business College, where I met a young woman who was most supportive and such a remarkable lady in her own right. Her name was Margaret, and she and I married. She had 2 children of her own, and we had a daughter together, who later became a medical doctor. I was successful working in business, but it took a few tries to find the right job. Margaret and I, we moved our family to Texas, and I started working with a company that manufactured asphalt products. I eventually became the manager of I was a plant manager of an affiliated company that hired me. And someone recommended me for that job by saying, this man has enough knowledge and experience in his little finger to run your whole plant for him. And I appreciated that comment because these little pinky fingers have been through a lot throughout life, and they've never rested on their laurels, just like me. Now, there were hard times, especially in the beginning, because I would get frustrated and ask, why me? During those times, I was caught up thinking about how I was never going to walk again. But with the love and support from all my family, especially my mother and then my wife, I never gave up. I transformed that question of why me into why not me? I can adapt, I can be positive, I can return this love and support that everyone has shown me, and I can downplay all this negativity. Because polio can't stop me from so many things in life. It can't stop me from driving a car, popping wheelies in my wheelchair, which I'm not going to demonstrate for you right now. But technology, learning and loving technology throughout life and realizing how much easier and better technology is going to make the lives of disabled people all throughout life. And that excited me. And speaking of Googling and being able to use technology, I hope that everyone learns just a little more through looking things up, and things like Rotary International, who conducted this whole cemetery tour tonight. For the past 40 years, it's been their mission to eradicate polio throughout the globe. And even though there have been very effective vaccines for polio since 1955, and polio essentially was eradicated from the U.S. for the past 20 years, just in the past few months, there has been the first case of polio again identified in New York State in one gentleman. And I believe that we shouldn't let our guard down. The children and grandchildren should know about polio so that we can hopefully never relive the fears of what happened during those epidemics in the 1940s and 50s. Now, I passed away in 2021, and my wife Margaret and I are interred back here in Clay County, right here in Elmwood Cemetery. And I want to say thank you for sharing in my story this evening.
In 1922, an influenza epidemic was raging through Illinois, an influenza that was taking lives. It took my life and the lives of 3 of my precious children. My name is Grace Monacle. I was born right here in Flora in 1884, and I died right here in Flora in 1922 at the age of 38. I loved living in this wonderful little town. I lived my whole life here, and I love my husband and my 10 children.
And we love you too. I'm Arthur Monacle, Grace's husband. I was born 1871 and died 1954. I wish Grace would have lived as long as I did, but God had other plans for our family.
Yes, life can be like a roller coaster, but for a while it felt like ours would never come back up the hill. Arthur and I were married in 1904, and we began having children. Our oldest son, Louis, was born in 1905, and after that the Lord continued to bless us with more children.
Tell them about me.
Well, you can tell them if you'd like.
Okay, I can do that. Hi, my name is Roy Monacle, and I am 8 years old. And I was my parents' favorite child.
Hey, don't say that. Me. I was the favorite. Roy.
Okay, well, I was just guessing. They never really said that. I love my family and living in Flora. It all ended on Halloween night, 1918. I got kicked by a horse and died. Stupid horse. I always hated that one. He was big and ugly and smelly and...
Yes, and that was one of the worst nights of my life. Hearing the words that he was gone is a shock I'll never get over. I thought I was going to die of a broken heart right there. In fact, if it wasn't for Arthur and my other children, I probably would have. You see, we had 10 children in total, including Roy. We had 8 boys and a girl when I got pregnant for the last time. Oh, how I wanted another girl. I just couldn't wait to dress her up and show her off. I just wish my sweet Mary Catherine had gotten more than one day with her.
There. We're all together now. You see, Grace was pregnant when the influenza hit our household. There are 6 kids in bed sick, and Grace, and I had to take care of all of them. You see, the influenza made Grace's body weak, and she went into premature labor. Mary Catherine was born very, very early, and a day later, she died in my arms. Grace was too ill to nurse or hold her. Mary Catherine died on January 28, 1922.
and I died 5 days later. 2 days after that, our precious little Conrad died at only 22 months old. 6 days after that, Arthur turned 41, but he looked as though he had aged 10 years instead of just 1. And 4 days after that, our funny, smart, sweet little boy.
Hey, don't call me little. I was 12. Besides, when everyone first started getting sick, I was a big help to Dad.
No one thought I would get the influenza too, but I tried to beat it, but once it got to my lungs, there wasn't much the doctors could do. I died just a few weeks after the influenza first hit our house, and by the time I was dead, my family was shattered. I lost my mom and 2 siblings before I did die.
And I was now a single dad of 6 kids. Life was chaos.
Luckily, they had me. I am Thelma Monacle Whitney, and I was 11 years old when the influenza hit our house. And I was the only girl at the time, and so I took on a lot of responsibility and helped a lot with the chores. I was sort of the mother hen of the group, even though some of the kids were older than I was. And I helped Dad a lot. I mean, we got through it. It was tough, but we managed.
We sure did, honey.
I went on to grow up and got married and had 5 kids of my own. And my husband, Mr. Roy Whitney, and I lived in Marion County out by Brown Church. And I'm buried in Parker Cemetery. And it was definitely a sad time in our life.
My name is Russell Monacle. I was only 4 years old when the influenza hit our household. I don't remember too much, but I remember being too sick to get out of bed. I also remember a lot of people crying. But the thing I do remember a lot is me calling out to my mom. Give me a moment. Thank you. I, alongside my 4 brothers and Thelma here, were the only ones to make it to adulthood. I even served in World War II. I was enlisted in 1941 and was discharged in 1944. Around that same time, Thelma here, my big sister, passed away. My family was glad that I was home safe and sound, and it was an honor to serve my country, and I was thankful that one of us kids could do so. In 1994, I passed away at the age of 67.
Your father and I were so proud of you.
Yes, we absolutely were. After Grace died, life went on. I married a very sweet woman named Marie. Me and Marie lived on the corner of West North Avenue, where the pub, or the Kiwanis building, is now located. You know, you're right. Life is like a roller coaster. It has its ups and its downs.
1922 was a terrible year for our family, and I'm thankful it's behind us. Take time to love your families and hold your children close. Thank you for listening to our tragic story.
Very good.
By the way, I'm the favorite.
Bye guys. Have a good one. In 1922, I was dead. Well, that's how my story ends. Let me tell you how it begins. It begins to get interesting. My name's William Porter. I was 40 years old when the war between the states broke out. Now, being a native Virginian, I felt the call of duty to join the Confederate Army. Y'all want to hear about me being a hero and all that?
Yeah.
Oh, you were not a war hero. Mama was the real hero of this family. Go on and tell him, Mama.
Well, I wouldn't exactly say I was a hero or anything.
She's more of one than he is.
That is true.
Go on, darling. Tell them how brave you were.
I'll tell them about my story as soon as you remove your hand from my back and you tricksy on over that way. It was May of 1864, and the war was literally at my front door during the Battle of the Wilderness.
My father, Benjamin Higgerson, died of smallpox around Christmas time during the war. Mama had to raise 5 children and run a farm all on her own since our 2 slaves ran off.
Well, by that time, I had had enough. I stood my ground on my land with this here broom, and I ran them soldiers off my land. I told them boys they were headed to their death, but nobody believed me.
Mama was so brave, she stood her ground to them Yankees. She stood her ground to them Yankees. They burned all the houses to the ground, but not ours. There's even a sign mentioning Mama and the Higgerson farm in the National Park of the Battleground.
All right. Your hero story is over. Let's get back to something more interesting. Me. See, I survived that war, and I wandered around for a little bit, and that's when I met my beautiful, beautiful wife, sweet Pamelia. Sometimes a man's got to do what a man's got to do. Well, I got myself a farm out of the deal and 4 too many stepchildren. I was 45 at this point, so I figured it was time for me to settle down.
Well, you were a smooth talker, all right. He talked me into marrying him, he talked me into selling my farm, and then he talked me into moving out west with him.
We moved to Missouri where Mama had her baby.
Well, we ain't introduced Jacquelina here yet. Jacquelina is Pamelia's eldest daughter. Well, she was only 13 when we got married. Ain't she pretty?
Now this is the time that I was pregnant with William and I's second child, a little girl, and Jacquelina was expecting her first baby.
Needless to say, Pamelia was none too happy with us. You see, I couldn't help that I'd fallen in love with my own stepdaughter. See, 31 years is nothing when true love is involved.
I was only 16 when I had my first child, and my mama was pregnant with my half-sister and had her a few months later.
Now get this, my 2 daughters was both sisters and aunt and niece to one another. You'd have thought we was from Kentucky or something. Some of you may not understand why this would have happened, but well, just look at them and could you blame me?
Well, William and I, we never did divorce, and he and Jacquelina, well, they ran off together and she became his common-law wife.
We ended up moving to Montana where we had 3 more children over the course of 8 very long years.
Well, after 4 children, Jacquelina just didn't quite look the same as she used to, so, well, I left her for another woman. You just can't keep a smooth-talking ladies' man like me down.
I left him and he knows it.
Well, this was the time that he ran off with their youngest son, John Porter, and they moved here to Flora, Illinois, where John raised a family until his death.
That did break my heart, but I did eventually meet and marry a good man, and I stayed with him in Montana until I died at the age of 98 in the year of 1952.
Well, even though Jacquelina did break my heart, I eventually did forgive my daughter, and we wrote letters back and forth to each other until my death in 1897. I'll tell you one thing, a mother-daughter relationship is a lot more important than a nasty, smooth-talking, supposed ladies' man.
Well, we are back to the beginning of the story, which is the end, where I am dead.
Thank God.
And buried alone as the only Confederate soldier buried in Elmwood Cemetery.
Good riddance.
Thank you folks all for coming out this evening, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your tour.
Here, you can take my line.
To consecrate and sanctify our association by our devotion to mutual helpfulness. In the year 1922, that's 100 years ago. Wow. The American Legion Auxiliary was founded. I joined the American Legion Post when I moved to Flora with my husband, Arlen Larkin. I also became a member of the Auxiliary. We advocate for veterans, military, and our citizens. We educate citizens, mentor youth, and promote the patriotism, good citizenship, peace, and security. Before I continue, let me introduce myself. I am Eva Larkin. I'm a life member of the American Legion, Post 14, and the Auxiliary Unit 14. I was very active in both. Hi,
Some of you may have recognized me. I am Libby Friend. You met my husband TJ up at the depot earlier. And I joined the auxiliary right after Eva.
The American Legion Auxiliary was founded to support the American Legion and to honor the sacrifice of those who serve by enhancing lives of veterans, military, and their families, both at home and abroad. I served in World War II in the Women's Army Corps. During basic training, I met my future husband. He was across the room, and our eyes met, and it was love at first sight. I was smitten. We started dating shortly after and got married. And then we moved to Flora after the war.
Don't they have just the cutest love story?
Oh, they sure do. Hi guys, I'm Pat Cooper. I have not passed away, however, I have retired from the auxiliary. I joined the auxiliary in the 1960s. We focused on helping the community and setting up programs for soldiers once they got home. The requirements to be in the auxiliary are that you must be a daughter, granddaughter, wife, or sister of anyone that served. In the 1960s, we hosted lots of uniform dances, where the gentlemen would wear their uniforms and the ladies would wear their formal dresses. We aimed to show that women could still serve our country from non-combat positions.
Hi, I'm Lena Mayer, and I was involved in the auxiliary for many, many years, up until the 1990s. In the 1980s, we weren't involved in a war, but we still wanted to be involved in our community by laying wreaths on graves of soldiers, by marching in any Flora parade, and also having our monthly meetings. Oh, they sure do make the best food.
Oh, those potlucks. I remember those. We had a few members join just for the food.
Oh, Elaine's apple pie? Oh my, I remember it like it was yesterday.
Oh my goodness, yes. And Mrs. Laird's homemade fried chicken.
Oh, I just could not get enough, and I just love.
Girls. Let's keep everything on task here. Stick to our agenda. Now, my patriotism was my focus. I believe in upholding flag etiquette, no matter what. And I was not afraid to correct people when they made a mistake. For example, the correct way to say the pledge is with no pause between one nation and under God. You should say one nation under God, not one nation under God. And also on the flagpole, it's very strict that the eagle face forward, as it is right now, and then be carried straight up when it's coming in. Then the auxiliary flag would be carried at an angle so that it's lower than the United States flag, and that keeps the United States flag above all. You folks know the flagpole that's out by Industrial Park by the water tower? Well, I'm responsible for that.
So I sold a lot of poppies. These were done in remembrance of our veterans, and I helped Eva with this. It was a great fundraiser.
And I had the pleasure of knowing Eva. She could come off as intimidating, but she was a truly kind person. She secretly helped send teen girls who couldn't afford to go to Girls State, a patriotic summer camp. She wanted to continue to spread her love for America to the next generation.
Oh, Eva, she did so much for Unit 14.
She sure did.
Now, just to clarify, Flora is post 14 out of the entire country. We were the 14th American Legion post formed out of the whole nation. There was actually another post that was started out in Colorado that went by 14. However, we are the original and the current post 14. My name is Cindy, and I'm a current member of the American Legion or Auxiliary Unit. What the unit does is support the post 14. Now in 2022, we have fewer members, but our spirit of patriotism and community service still lives on. We still send girls to the Girls State Summer Camp, and we still help out in our community. Fewer members does not mean a smaller impact, because true patriotism lives on forever.
I am so proud of what this organization has done since the 1940s. Sadly, I passed away in 2004, and I am buried here in Elmwood with my husband. Harlan Larkin. These 4 ladies and others have continued to carry on my legacy, and for that I will be forever grateful.
Oh, yeah.
Meeting adjourned.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Well, good evening, everybody. Let me introduce myself. My name is Charlie Overstreet, and this is my wife, Catherine Lewis Overstreet. You can call her Katie. I was born here in Flora in February of 1922, and I spent a lot of my life pursuing my passion of taking pictures, and I accomplished a few other things in my life as well.
Charlie, would you put the camera down? Have a seat.
All right.
Let's tell these good people our story.
All right, go ahead.
Charlie and I were married in July of 1943, right before he was shipped off to the Army during World War II. Now, don't let Charlie fool you. He is not a modest man. In fact, Charlie, I'm surprised you didn't start our story by telling everyone that you were the mayor of Flora for 4 years.
Well, my dear, I know that that's a big deal, but let's go back a few years first.
Okay.
As you said, I got shipped off and I went to war. Served during World War II in Germany with the 102nd Infantry Division. And I served there as a radio man, but I also had time to take a lot of pictures. Over 700 images of the life of a soldier. I'm really proud of that collection now because it's been digitized and shared with the world. You can see my pictures on the Illinois Archives page and at the Flora Public Library. In fact, you rarely ever saw me without a camera in my hand. I took thousands and thousands of pictures, even as a civilian. So many pictures that I was able to publish a couple of books. Charlie's Flora and Charlie's Flora More.
When Charlie got back home from the Army, we had a beautiful baby boy and we named him Patrick. Patrick grew up in Flora, went to high school here, and then just like his daddy, went on to serve the country. Now, he got back home and he worked as a police officer briefly before he moved to Athens, Georgia, where he currently lives today.
After serving in the military, I came home and I worked 30 years for the United States Postal Service, and then I retired. During my life, I was in many organizations. Just to name a few, I was a member of the Masonic Lodge, I was a member of the Kiwanis Club, and I was a member of the Flora Elks Lodge for many years. I even got to serve as the Exalted Ruler one year.
I don't think Charlie ever really retired. We got to meet so many wonderful people in our lifetime. So many of the people I met was during my 24 years of working at the First National Bank of Flora. I was also a member of the VFW Post, the American Legion Post Auxiliary, and the new Phi Mu sorority. Charlie and I love children, but Patrick never gave us any grandchildren to love and spoil. But God would intervene whenever a beautiful family would come into our lives, first as neighbors.
Tommy and Nikki Lake and their 3 children lived right next door to us on Flora Avenue. And believe me when I say to you, they became much more than just neighbors through the years. It started out as just waves across the yard, but eventually we started visiting and we spent so much time with them that they became our children and our grandchildren. We thanked God for bringing them into our lives every day. When we were younger, we took care of them, and then as we grew older, they took really good care of us.
Those children were so precious to us. 2 beautiful girls and a boy. We just love watching them be outside and play and enjoy their lives. We would take them for ice cream.
And how many ball games must we have attended?
One of my favorite things to do was go sledding with them at Charlie Brown Park when the snow fell.
And we even volunteered to take them on their school field trips, which gave me an opportunity to take more pictures.
Unlike myself, Charlie loved being in the limelight. In fact, I think Charlie would be upset with us if we didn't talk about how much he was in the limelight in 1987. As many of you know, Flora was pursuing a prison and went the extra mile of doing the Is We Is song and video. Oh boy, did my husband ham it up for that video.
You can see it on YouTube.
But he not only did the video, he gave lots of interviews that would land him in the local television. But that wasn't the big thing. He eventually would land the big time whenever he was on national TV.
And not just national TV, it was Good Morning America. I was kind of a big deal. Now, a lot of people might not find it unusual for people to make their own funeral arrangements before they die, but Katie and I took it an extra step. We bought our own headstone. And then what a lot of people don't know is that we would come out and visit and take pictures and just spend some time even just visiting and decorating it.
We just have fun.
Yeah. I passed away quietly in our home in 2010 at the age of 88.
I missed Charlie desperately whenever he passed away. But I was so thankful to have the love and support of Patrick and my bonus family. They loved me and they took such good care of me until the time of my death 5 years later.
We loved our hometown of Flora, and we were so thankful for what Flora gave back to us.
And tonight, we just want to thank you all for coming to hear our story. Thank you.
I was acquitted. But of what?
Hold on. Let me tell the story. Good evening. My name is Mildred Kelly, and I work in a bank downtown. Let me introduce you to these guys. These 3 guys are going to come in a little later, but this guy right here, he's my husband. On the afternoon of December 20th, 1921, these 3 men broke into the bank that I was working in, stuck a gun in Mr. Holtzlaw's face, and told us to stick him up. They weren't going to get away with it, though. Not if I could help it.
Hello, my name's Albert Williams. I'm 37 years old from St. Louis, Missouri, and I was a convicted train robber. Well, I thought I'm going to give up on the old trains. They're well guarded, so I'm going to go to the small town banks. Unguarded, easy pickings. So I got a hold of my good friend Ed Hall here, along with his brother Lex, and I had a small gang. So I figured a small bank be easy pickings. So I chose the Iuka State Bank.
These men came in and they said stick them up. So I could hear their voices, but also not all of them had masks on, only one of them. I don't know how they thought they were going to get away with it. They ended up stealing $16,000 worth of money, plus all of the Liberty bonds we had in the bank. So in total, they ended up stealing over $20,000. That was a lot of money in 1921.
That's right. And she says I was there, but was I? I mean, sure, my hat was in the getaway car with my name in it, and sure, it had some paint smears on it from some odd jobs I would do with my father, as we were both local painters. But I had 21 people stand up at my trial and witness that I was 21 miles away here in Flora at the time of the robbery. I may have also been the only one that was smart enough to wear a mask. They said I was not guilty.
Okay, I wish I'd been a little smarter and wore a mask. Then maybe she would have never recognized me. I may have been older than my brother, but clearly I wasn't as smart. I was found guilty and then sentenced to prison.
I could tell it was them though. So I thought they weren't going to get away with this. So I found an old gun we had in the bank, and I got in my car and I started chasing these men down country roads. And eventually, some men in the town joined in and tried to help me, but the chase went on for a long time. But eventually we did catch them. They were going to pay for their theft. It was the last thing I did.
We were caught because of her. This smart alecky young lady, this dame, got us caught when we was traveling in our car and it got stuck in the mud. We all didn't get caught, but those of us that got caught didn't have any money, so we had to stay in jail until the jury trial.
We convinced our brother Earl to drive the car for us, and since he wasn't caught and nobody really got a good look at him, he was acquitted on all charges.
Now I tried to tell that jury I was in another part of Illinois, that I took the B&O train that morning from Flora, but that darn train ticket agent and the conductor never said I was there. Can you believe that?
This isn't the end of the story though.
Hello, my name is Clarence Smith, and I was in college at Southern Illinois University at the time of the robbery. I read every word I could find on the robbery and the immense bravery of Miss Mildred Kelly. I fell in love through that paper, and I decided I just had to meet her. You see, my father was a lawyer in the trial, and he would come home explaining to me just how brave she was, how kind, and how pretty. I somehow persuaded him to introduce us, and soon after that I proposed to her, and we were married on a quiet afternoon at the Rose Lake home of her parents, Albert and Florence Kelly.
That's right, and we made our home right here in Flora. My husband ended up becoming state's attorney at the age of 24. That's the youngest in Illinois history. You might know him from the attorney's office here in town, Smith, McCollum, and Riggle, located downtown just above U.S. Bank.
Who would have thought a bank robbery would bring us together?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dearest, darling Zula, Sugar, that 2 weeks you were here were the happiest 2 weeks I've had in the Army. But hun, I guess this war will be over someday. Now I can be home with you again to stay. Boy, won't that be a happy day. Sugar, I will close for now. I send you all my love, loving you always. Your forever loving husband. Loads of hugs and kisses, Otis. XO, 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 XO.
This is one of the first letters I received from my newlywed, Otis Henson. He was just 22 when he was drafted into the Army for World War II. We wrote to each other daily while he was at Camp Carson in Colorado, sometimes even more than once a day. I didn't know it, but at the time of this exchange, I was 1 month pregnant.
I wanted to hear from Zula every day. It was what I looked forward to the most. I would even try to send packages home weekly, containing boxes of jewelry and other knickknacks. Once, I even sent a radio.
The radio was the cheapest form of entertainment back in the day. It could reach the entire U.S. to inform them on war efforts.
I would try to send home money to support my family. My monthly paycheck was around $76. I would send home around half whenever I could. When I heard that Zula was pregnant, it gave me the strength and hope during the rough times.
We didn't know if the baby was a boy or a girl when I received the telegram in the summer of 1944. My life flipped upside down in a matter of seconds. It read,
I am deeply distressed to inform you that a corrected statement stating, your husband, Private Reuben O. Henson, who was previously reported missing in action, was killed in action.
I couldn't read the rest of it.
Killed in action. Date unreported in European area. The Secretary of War asks that I express his deep sympathy in your loss and his regret that unavoidable circumstances made necessary the unusual lapse of time in reporting your husband's death to you.
I was almost 8 months pregnant when I realized that my daughter would never meet her father. I named her Rebecca, after his mother, Becky for short.
I was shot and killed by a Nazi on July 22nd, 1944. I survived storming the beaches of Normandy. I made it all the way to northern France, about 100 miles from Paris before I fell. I had spent 23 days in a foxhole.
Otis was born in 1922 and he graduated from Flora High School. He was very active in school clubs and was junior class vice president and senior class treasurer. And he was even voted the best looking boy and was on the school's best dressers.
I met Zula in high school. She was 2 years younger than me. But after that, we were married after she graduated.
He was one of Flora's football stars and he will always be remembered for his athletic abilities. He was a hard-working young man who was very dedicated to his family, always looking after his 2 nephews. He would have been a great father.
My daughter would have been 7 by the time my body was brought back to Flora. I'm buried here in Elmwood Cemetery. To this day, my daughter, Becky Henson, still resides in Flora. She is the carrier of my Purple Heart medal, my family line, my legacy.
The brave never truly die, do they? The legacy of our war heroes live on in the memory of a great name and a great example.
River of Jordan. Oh yes, I'm going down to the river of Jordan some of these days. I'm going down to the river of Jordan. I'm going down to the river of Jordan some of these days. I'm going to sing in the heavenly choir. Oh yes, I'm going to sing in the heavenly choir some of these days. I'm gonna sing in the heavenly choir. I'm gonna sing in the heavenly choir some of these days. Well, I'm gonna sit at the banquet table. Oh yes, I'm gonna sit at the banquet table some of these days. I'm gonna sit at the banquet table. I'm gonna sit at the banquet table some of these days. And I'm gonna wear the silver slippers. Oh yes, I'm gonna wear them silver slippers some of these days. I'm gonna wear them silver slippers. I'm gonna wear them silver slippers some of these days. Well, I'm going down to the river of Jordan. Oh yes, I'm going down to the river of Jordan some of these days. I'm going down to the river of Jordan. I'm going down the river of Jordan some of these days. I wish I was a mole in the ground. Wish I was a mole in the ground. If I was a mole in the ground, Lord, I'd root that mountain down. I wish I was a mole in the ground. Well, Tippy once a $9 show. Tippy once a $9 show. When I come over that hill with a $20 bill, it's honey, where you been so long? Well, I've been around that bend so long. I've been around the bend so long. Lord, I've been around the bend with the rough and rowdy men. That's where I've been so long. Well, Capey, let your hair hang long. Capey, let your hair hang long. Let your hair hang long. Let it flow around and round. Capey, let your hair hang down. I wish I was a lizard in the spring. Wish I was a lizard in the spring. If I was a lizard in the spring, I could hear my baby sing. Lord, I wish I was a lizard in the spring. And I wish I was a mole in the ground. Wish I was a mole in the ground. If I was a mole in the ground, Lord, I'd root that mountain down. I wish I was a mole in the ground. Well, the cuckoo is a pretty bird, and she wobbles as she flies, but she never cries cuckoo till the 4th day of July. Well, I built a tall tower on a mountain so high, so I could see sweet William as he goes passing by. Well, the cuckoo is a pretty bird, and she wobbles as she flies, but she never cries cuckoo till the 4th day of July. Well, I gambled in England, and I played cards in Spain. Well, I bet your last dollar I can beat you next game. Well, the cuckoo is a pretty bird, and she wobbles as she flies, but she never cries cuckoo till the 4th day of July. Jack of diamonds, Jack of diamonds, I knowed you of old. You robbed my poor pocket blanket of silver and gold. Well, the cuckoo is a pretty bird, and she wobbles as she flies, but she never cries cuckoo till the fourth day of July. Don't you preserve my body when I'm gone. Don't you preserve my body when I'm gone. Don't you